What's up, guys? Mike here down in the dungeon. I didn't really, I was sitting here trying to think of something to talk about. It's so weird because sometimes, like, I have like 100 different things, or something will pop in my head, and I'll even write it down, like in my notes or something. And then when it comes, like, I'm coming back around, I'm like, I don't really. It's almost like I have to feel inspired to like talk about something, but there is something that has kind of hit me the past couple of days, and it's kind of religion related, which normally I save my religious stuff for Sundays, but on my channel I'll do whatever the fuck I want. So and basically it's this. There is no separation between church and state. Okay, so we have we have the we have this sort of idea that in the Constitution or whatever, there's a separation like between church and state. And really what that means is that the government can't favor one religious institution over another. So they couldn't be like, it's basically like religious freedom, almost like First Amendment type stuff, where you can't favor Christianity over Islam, or Islam over Christianity, or something like that. Okay, it's sort of along those lines. But in regards to separation of church and state, that doesn't exist. That doesn't exist. And I would love it if it did. I would love it if it did. But it doesn't exist. What are some examples of this? Well, I mean, on our money, it says "In God We Trust," right? Last time I checked, that's what it says. So right there, automatically, we've got some religion and state commingling, right? There's a lot of places around the U.S. that want to, they've talked about, the 10 Commandments and things like that in courtrooms or outside of courthouses, stuff like that. People are constantly mentioning God. There's a prayer breakfast in the, as part of like the, presidential routine. There's a lot of this sort of appeal to a religious authority or God. And it's typically, in this country, it's typically like the Christian God, okay? So we all know it. It permeates everything. There's really no separation of church and state. And what really brought this to the forefront of my mind, because I really didn't care, was I was watching a documentary, and they were complaining that they were being discriminated against based upon them being a religion, right? So I got to thinking, and I was like, then they made some pretty good examples, and I was like, there really isn't, there's no real separation of church and state. But our country does do a pretty good job of not showing favoritism to specific religions. Okay, they actually do a pretty good job of that, except for one major thing, which I'll get to. But so think of the Mormons in Utah. The Mormons pretty much control the state of Utah. The city of Salt Lake City was founded by them. It's their place. That's their place. There's no separation of church and state out there. There isn't, and that's just one example. So I think what we have, they were trying to say, well, if we can't have this community based upon our religion, like, it doesn't make any sense, because the Mormons and whatever else, they have their communities based around their religion too. That's a really good point. But I think really it's sort of the reason that they don't push this kind of a thing real hard, only when they choose to, right? But the reason they don't really push this religious thing too hard, the separation, is because it would be absolutely hypocritical. It would be absolutely hypocritical to say, oh, you Mormons can't be in charge of Salt Lake City, while the entire country, for the most part, is taken captive by Christianity. Okay, and how is that? Well, like, the majority of people that serve in Washington, D.C., whether they are actually real Christians or not, they claim Christianity. All of them. Every single president. Okay? Every single one. There's a big whoop-de-doo about Obama, President Obama, what was his religion. So he had to align himself, or he was aligned with some, church in Chicago or Illinois, or whatever, Christian church, so that like, the people, even though he was black and even though he had a ton of support, that the people probably weren't going to elect like a Muslim as the president, right? So he knew that he had to be aligned with Christianity, even to get elected on the Democrat side. Okay, now forget about the conservative Republican side. Like those you better be a Christian. Like you can't even be a Catholic. Like maybe you could now. Catholicism has seemed to be kind of like back. I mean, it never went away, but it's something where people are. It's probably a conversation for a different topic, but people's lives seem to be so unstable that they seem to crave a very rigid set of like an institution that is historic and is sort of a rigid, very the Protestants call it like high church kind of a thing. People crave that because everything is so fucking chaotic that at least they have this one sort of stable area in their life. So a lot of people are returning to the more, I don't want to say organized, but the more older, orthodox, more structured churches. Okay. Now a lot of people like are still evangelicals. There's a lot of evangelicals, and there's a lot of like this what is that sound? I think they must be here to mow or something. You've got these like rock band churches still, but people are shifting more towards like high church, whatever. I think it's all fucking ridiculous, but you can't remove the church from the state. You can't. So that like all of these politicians, we elect them based on their first allegiance, right, is to the Constitution, but that's not true because their first allegiance is to God, right? Okay. Now most people don't have a problem with that. If your first allegiance is God, they say that's where it's supposed to be. Okay, but the problem is that there are so many degrees of understanding within like Christianity, just for example. Okay, so you could have someone who believes in God from a very metaphorical sort of very spiritual side of like cosmic sort of creator God, right? Not necessarily that the Bible is inerrant and all this. They like these would be more. A lot of Catholics are kind of like this, but also like Eastern Orthodox, things like that. Like they don't necessarily have to have like the inerrancy of God. It's more of like it's honestly, it's more spirituality based, right? It's kind of hard for me to explain it. But then you've got more like hardliner Protestants that are like, the Bible is the inerrant word of God. Every word in here is true, da-da-da-da-da, right? So like, who would you rather have running things? Like, would you rather have the, honestly, more intellectual, more enlightened person who can understand that there is a difference between the views that they hold and the views that other people hold, and that one isn't necessarily better than the other, and they understand that there should be a separation between church and state, and they can leave, when they go to the voting booth, they can leave God at home, okay? Would you rather have that person running things, or would you rather have the hardliner who believes that their side is absolutely superior? These are the Christian nationalists. I mean, that's a very extreme version of it, right? But that's these people who believe that their God, the Christian God, and their, not only that, their interpretation, their denomination, whatever it is, if it's Protestant, it's probably Protestant, right? I mean, most of these guys are Protestants. That their interpretation, their belief system, the way that they believe is the truth. And they can't leave that at home. So they take that to the voting booth with them. They take that into the halls of Congress with them. It goes with them. So in a very, very real world, real on the ground truth is that you cannot separate these people's false beliefs, their cult beliefs, from the way that they implement laws. Okay? There's no separation. So what does that mean for somebody like me? Well, I think they're idiots, first of all, but I don't want to just dismiss them. Oh, you're an idiot. I think you're an idiot. I do. And I think you're misguided. But those might be too vague terms, okay? My problem would be, you're going and voting based upon a fundamental core belief that you have no evidence for, that there's no evidence for, that you're basically, you're like, you're not making an intelligent, what would you call, like, educated vote here. Because you've got this worldview that's all wrong. And and like I said, there's different understandings of it, right? Like, can you leave that at home? And can you make the right decision for a government and not for your end times view or whatever, right? There should be a separation. There should be a real separation, okay? In my opinion, we shouldn't have, not anybody should be able to get elected. And I know that sounds terrible, but if you're running a corporation, this is a giant fucking corporation, right? That's what it is. Wouldn't you want the smartest, most intelligent, most forward-thinking people running things? I'm not saying that you don't listen to the other people, but when it comes to making decisions, don't you want the most intellectual, the smartest, the innovators, the ones that can separate church and state in their mind? They can do what's best for the state or for the people while leaving their religion and their cult, in the background. And I'm not trying to make a case for abortion or pro-abortion. I think that I think abortion is pretty fucking heinous, but I don't think that abortion should be outlawed and completely banned. I think it's heinous. I do think it's heinous. But, I'm one of these, like, common sense type people, right? There are probably situations where an abortion is the absolute right decision, okay? But it isn't. It shouldn't be a decision made lightly, and it shouldn't be a decision that is placed on one individual, right? My body, my choice type stuff. And it doesn't that doesn't come into play when when a murder is about to be committed. But at the same time, there should be a place for it. There should be a place for it. Common sense here, people. It's common sense that the church and the state are not separated, and it's because the people that make up the state are compromised by the church. Okay? And like I said, not all of them are good people. Like, a lot of them will say, well, I'm a Christian, but they, these are terrible human beings. Okay, and I don't give a damn if they're smart or dumb or brainwashed or whatever. They make decisions and they make votes that are absolutely heinous, and that they I used to be a Christian, and there's things that you cannot vote for if you're a Christian, right? You can't. Again, how do you separate those two, right? It's a flawed system. It's completely fucked. Now, would I rather the Christians be in charge than the Muslims? Yeah, I would. Would I rather the Christians be in charge than the intellectuals? No, probably not. No. And I think the biggest reason is, like, if you look at the most, you tend to have to look at the most extreme example. Like, what's the worst possible scenario? And the worst possible scenario would be these Christian nationalists running things. That's a pretty bad scenario. To me, it's not as bad as Sharia law, but damn, dude, it's close. It's close, and it isn't that bad for me. But I'm not the kind of person that's just going to sit back and let a Muslim or someone else who doesn't believe the way that the law, people that make the laws believe they should believe, and allow those people to be persecuted. Fuck you. Well, fuck you. Right? Fuck you. You can't do that. Sorry. Not around here. Anyway, just some random ramblings today. Separation of church and state doesn't really exist. I wish it did. It's probably impossible. It's probably absolutely impossible. But, it is what it is, and I got to function in this society just the same as you. So, you kind of have to, you just kind of have to deal with it. And that's it. So, think about it. Think about it, and think about how, whatever religious beliefs you have, if you do, how they affect your, what effect they have on you when it comes to making common sense decisions, why you believe the things you do. This channel's a lot about questioning everything. Question these things. Yeah. And don't fall for the cult. Don't be in a cult. Don't be in a cult. You can be in a cult if you want, but it's probably preferred if you don't.